Hey guys, Rilk here, and welcome to my 7 Days to Die video, Is Farming Worth It in Alpha 20? Now before we get started, I want to talk about an adjustment in farming that was done after the release of Alpha 20. Basically what they did was they took the 25% chance to get a seed when you pick up a crop on farmland, or one that you've planted, and they turned it into 50%, which makes it way more viable. Let's talk about the farming mechanics. So the only thing you can do to affect your farming is putting points in living off the land. The main thing living off the land does is it increases your crop yield when you pick up crops. It also has added benefits. It helps you have seed recipes. It also decreases the cost of farming plots. So level 1 doubles your harvest as well as gives you pretty much all the seed recipes, I believe. It also lowers the farm cost by 30%. Uh, Level 2 does 50%. It also gives you a 50% chance to give you an extra crop. So for me, I'm just going to do it as it does 2.5 times for our math later. And then Farmer 3, all that does is triple your crop gathering. Time to talk about farm plots. You're gonna need farm plots when you start farming. The only crop that doesn't grow on a farm plot is a mushroom. But for all intensive purposes for this video, mushrooms count the same as every other crop because farm plots double your harvest, but your mushrooms are also doubled even though they're not on farm plots. So essentially, it's the same thing. Your main ingredient that you're gonna be missing in farm plots is rotten flesh. I only really start making farm plots when I'm level 2 living off the land. That 50% making it 5 rotten flesh per farm plot can make the difference between a small farm and a medium farm early game. Another cool thing about farm plots is you can pick them up and place them anywhere as long as you have a digging tool. So you just pick it up and it goes straight into your inventory. Wild crops. We're going to categorize wild crops in 3 different groupings, and it's all going to be by location. So, our first location is the forest. You can find chrysanthemum, goldenrod, and cotton almost anywhere in a forest. I was just looking around. I probably took all the ones around here, so this was probably a patch of chrysanthemum. I know there was one over there, but I think I took it down. So yeah, you can find them all over the place in the forest. They'll just be in patches. Generally, all 3 of them will be together. Our next location is the desert. You're gonna find yucca and aloe vera just randomly placed all over the desert. And then our last location is gonna be POIs. So farmhouses generally have a lot of crops. Some houses at the back have a decent amount of crops. Um, there's a few other little POIs that have some crops as well. The thing about wild crops, they don't get that double up bonus from the farming plot. Now, onto the math. All right, so each row behind me has 20 crops planted for each row. So that's where all my math was based off of. There's a 50% chance to acquire a seed every time you harvest a crop. Just another reiteration of farm plots double your harvest. I don't know why I didn't mention this earlier, but for every seed, you need 5 crops to make a seed. So with our 20 crops, there's an average of 10 seeds per harvest. So that was what my math was based off of here. And then each column here is a different level of living off the land. So we've got 0, 1, 2, and 3. So for no points into living off the land, I could get 40 crops, which can only make 8 seeds, which would mean I'd be a negative of 2 seeds. So don't start working on farming until you put any points into living off the land. I still prefer to start at level 2. That way I can put all my points elsewhere, and that way I can get the most out of the farm plot. Most of the time, after I've planted, it takes me a little while to get to living off the land 3, but by the time I do, usually I'm ready to harvest the first time, so keep that in mind. Alright, for living off the land 1, you'd get 80 crops, which can make us up to 16 seeds, so we gain 6 seeds or 30 crops per harvest. Living off the land 2, 100 crops or 20 seeds, so that's a gain of either 10 seeds or 50 crops. And living off the land 3 is 120 crops or 24 seeds, and that's a gain of 14 seeds or 70 crops. On to a few tricks with farming. I never farm empty-handed anymore. If you start farming a lot and you happen to have a full inventory, you could end up eating what you're trying to harvest. Also, if I have a knuckle weapon, I actually attack a lot faster, so I'm harvesting faster. You can also increase your attack rate with Flurry of Blows. For every level, it gives you a bit faster attack with one-handed melee weapons. I think it tells me here. So, clubs, brawling, knives, machetes, stun batons. You can also harvest with an auger. It's a lot faster. I wouldn't suggest it, just because you actually end up attracting a few zombies with your heat generation the more you use an auger. Another trick I use, I plant my crops and harvest my crops the same time every single harvest. So when I start my day in 7 Days to Die and sunup comes, that's when I go outside, I harvest all the crops I have, and then I start planting. So that way I'm not confused when my crops are going to be done. So they'll be done in 2 days. Trick number 3, early on I focus my farm. So the 2 main crops I worry about is corn and potatoes. They're in a lot of good recipes, and early on you don't need eggs, you don't need a whole bunch of things if you can get potatoes and corn. Also, there's a few other things I will work on depending on where I spawn, who's playing with me, and what kind of builds they're doing. So if for instance we're near a snow biome and we're gonna spend most of our time there for the loot bonus, I'm gonna be spamming yucca early so we can get yucca smoothies. If we start, let's say, with someone who's gonna be doing beer, we gotta start growing hops. Alright, time for my conclusion here. If you use no points in living off the land, don't even bother farming. You're going to be losing crops. You're not going to be able to sustain your seeds. You're not going to have a good time with farming. It's a total detriment. It's a waste of time. My conclusion for level 1 living off the land, is it worth it for farming? Actually, I think it is. If you're playing solo, and you don't have to feed all your friends, I think you could easily get by with just putting 1 point and living off the land. I enjoy farming, so I always have 3 points in living off the land, and I usually play with a group of, I don't know, 4 or 5 people. By, I would say, week 3, week 4, my crop chest is exploding. I have more than enough food to take a week or 2 off in game before I need to even worry about our crops running out. So I'm happy with living off the land in 3, but I think it is actually viable with living off the land 1. Well, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video, or at least learned something.